Lemonade, the controversial and potentially industry-disrupting insurance company, has plowed onto the scene with bravado. We've seen a bunch of drama in the stock price, but we've also seen a bunch of new offerings as well as the promise of new services coming out on the horizon. Today we're going to take a look at Lemonade stock. Welcome back to the channel. Family, my name is Trey, getting in touch with you from Japan. On this channel, we take a look at stocks, investing, finance, personal growth, small business, and things like that. I've actually gotten a bunch of feedback from a lot of you guys about how I should separate all of the entrepreneurship stuff into a completely different channel. So that might be coming up on the horizon. Today, we're gonna be taking a look at Lemonade, but I should let you know that when I used to live in California, I used to be an insurance agent. So I kind of have a different way of looking at a lot of these different factors than a lot of the people you see on YouTube. And I've also found a couple of other really interesting tidbits of information that really skew the way we should be looking at a lot of the quarterly data that we got, especially for this quarter. So stick around to check it out, and at the end of the video, I'll share about what I'm gonna be doing with Lemonade stock. Check it out, we have the stock price chart. Since our last video in August, we started in August around 60 bucks. We've gone down a lot, down into the 40s, up a lot, up into the high 60s, and then back down to the 40s, and then up and down again. And we're here now at 63-ish bucks. And this is all since their IPO in July. And I think for a lot of people, it's been like, oh, it's a new IPO. It's probably just gonna be weird drama and then settle down into nothingness after a while, like a lot of IPOs have done, Dropbox included. If you're interested in Dropbox, check out my most recent video up here. But we are seeing a lot of really good indications that Lemonade is growing in the right direction despite this drama in their stock price. And I think a lot of these indicators suggest that Lemonade could really end up disrupting the whole insurance industry going into the future in the coming years. In my last video on Lemonade, I did a little bit more of an in-depth jump at who Lemonade is, what they do, who they're targeting. Traditionally, they are targeting a demographic that's like really uninterested in insurance, young people. And generally speaking, young people don't like thinking about the possibility of dying or their house burning down or their apartment being burgled or things like that. And check it out here, the demographic that they're targeting has given them a really high satisfaction rating. They show on their website an almost 5-star insurance company. Going down into a bit more detail, they mentioned that they use AI and apps to offer quick signups and quick payouts in the case of insurance claims as well. 90 seconds to get insured, 3 minutes to get paid. That's what our generation is all about. Going down a little bit more, really clear and simple pricing on their numerous services, including the newest and surprisingly profitable portion, pet health insurance. Another neat thing that Lemonade does, unlike other insurance companies, is at the end of the quarter, at the end of the term, when they figure out, hey, we've paid all of our insurance claims and we have a little bit left over, they guarantee that they're gonna give a bunch of that to causes that you choose or the clients choose. I used to work at State Farm Insurance, and I feel like this is more interesting for people like me. In the same case, if they had leftover premium at the end of the quarter, they would mail it back to you in a check. For me, I'm like, that's pretty dope. But actually, I understand why Lemonade uses this strategy because we know their pricing is quite low, but it's possible that other people in the future start to offer even more aggressive pricing. But if you're thinking like, oh yeah, my plan with these guys is 50 bucks a year, but the other guys are 40 bucks a year. Is it worth saving 10 bucks a year to switch? But I know Lemonade is giving a bunch of support to these organizations that I really love. So yeah, I probably won't switch. I like Lemonade more. And that's one of those really cool like PR moves that companies can make that will bring on loyalty. Things like auto insurance are extremely complicated and vary greatly between state and country. So they haven't gotten anywhere near that, but they have mentioned that they're going to be launching life insurance coming up like within a few weeks probably. And their idea is, hey, we're gonna test the market. We're gonna be like beta testing and seeing how we can make it work. And if it works out really well, then they're gonna be offering that on a bigger scale as one of their main offerings alongside like the pet insurance and stuff like that. Life insurance is a $800 billion a year industry. And one of the really cool things that Lemonade does as part of their strategy is they target young people who generally aren't interested in insurance, get them on board with a small, cheap insurance package, and then they stick with them for life. And when you have clients who are this like in love with your company and this loyal to it, it's likely that if I start with a renter's insurance policy, later on when I move into a condo or a house, I'll just upgrade my plan. and same thing with life insurance. If I start young, then I'll probably just keep it for the rest of my life. And that's one of the ways Lemonade really keeps their customer acquisition costs down. Speaking of customer acquisition costs, that's pretty much one of the biggest costs most insurance companies have. Whenever I'm watching professional sports, even though I live in Japan, I still watch NFL, NBA, and stuff like that. There are like always insurance commercials on, right? And those commercials cost a lot, and they'll end up spending a lot of money to get you over. And they won't really, if they can get you to join their insurance company, they're not even really making money. They're kind of banking on you staying for 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, and then it pays off. But Lemonade's strategy completely sidesteps that whole thing. They're not going out and paying millions of dollars for commercials at the Super Bowl or things like that. Lemonade also mentioned in their most recent quarterly report that pet insurance, interestingly, has become like the gateway for a really large chunk of their income. People get on board with a pet insurance policy, which is like not even a lot of people have even heard of that. And then they're kind of like, wow, this is really easy to use and really like quick to get my reimbursements and stuff like that. So I might as well do my renter's insurance with them and then, maybe add on other policies later. They mentioned that the median premium paid by people who added pet insurance jumped by almost 400%. And the likelihood of clients who primarily set up a pet policy and then also add on other policies is so effective that it has led to roughly 900% more in-force premium than other policies have. That being said, pet insurance itself will probably only work out to be about 5% of in-force premium by the end of the year. So all that means, basically, it's very, very likely that if somebody comes on with pet insurance, they're going to add a bunch of other stuff. Much more so than if they came in through the door with a renter's policy or some other kind of insurance policy. So that pet insurance policy is proving to be like a really big moneymaker, getting people into other services of Lemonade. I mentioned earlier some of the expansion on the horizon. Currently, Lemonade is operating in a lot of US states. They also operate in Germany and the Netherlands, but they also just announced they're going to be expanding to France coming up here soon. It's clear that they want to be expanding all over the EU, but it sounds like they want to be heavier on the US side, kind of as their big home base of operations, and then little by little reaching out to different EU countries, rather than letting the EU outweigh things going on in the US. So one of the really tricky things about Lemonade is that you hear all these kind of interesting facts, and you see a lot of the hype going on YouTube or in social media or whatever, and you're kind of like, I don't know if the financials and the earnings really support me rushing in to be an investor right now. So for those of you who've been watching me recently, I've been using a lot of HyperCharts, but HyperCharts take into a lot of information that makes things really easily digestible. But there's one really big detail that's kind of particular to Lemonade in this quarter that skews and jacks up a lot of the HyperCharts for this quarter. So I'm going to show you one HyperChart to start out, but I'm mostly going to be using figures and charts from Lemonade's own documentation for this video. Check it out here. Let's look at client growth. Last quarter, we were at 814,000 clients, and now we're at 941,000. So looking at that whole chart, it's a nice smooth bar going all the way up. That's great to see, but I think it's still safe to expect that we're very much in the early, really growth kind of phases of Lemonade as a company. In-force premium, or IFP, which is basically the revenues for insurance companies, has been growing steadily as well. According to this chart, it looks like it's doubled since the same quarter last year, which is super luscious. We also see that the PPC, or premium per customer, has gone up 19% year over year to $201. Check it out here. This chart provides a look at gross earned premium and has jumped 104% year over year. I'll get into how that can be a little bit tricky, especially for Lemonade, especially this quarter here in a minute. Another noteworthy accomplishment is that the gross loss ratio has dropped by 7.7% year over year as well. This tells us that they're getting better at analyzing risks and losing less money for payouts to clients, which is like a super crucial skill for insurance companies. Despite unprecedented levels of natural disasters with California's worst wildfire season of all time, along with hurricane numbers exploding, Lemonade was able to lower their loss ratio this year. They did mention that those catastrophe cases only accounted for 6% of this 72% that they show here on the chart. They mentioned that compared to other insurance companies, proportionally, their catastrophic losses this year were 75% lower. So that gives you an idea of how conservative they are, how cautious they are, and how their risk management is really going to be adding up to impact the bottom line in the coming years, I think. Now moving forward, let's take a look at some of the profitability figures. But first, I need to explain that really kind of crucial thing for Lemonade this quarter. You see, Lemonade is an insurance company, but they use reinsurance. So basically they're going to other insurance companies behind the scenes and saying, hey, we'll pay you a commission if you can be the one actually insuring all of these clients for us. And so they need to pay the commissions to the other companies, but the way it worked out this quarter was that it happened on the first day of the quarter, where they paid out all of last quarter's commissions. So it looked like, profit ratio is going up, profits going up, and then it was like, boosh, instant like nukage. Check it out here on this chart. It shows kind of right after second quarter started, you see that GAAP revenue drop, whereas the GAAP gross margin jumped up. And that's right after June 30th ends, right when July 1st starts. And so a lot of the metrics you're gonna see on different analytics websites make it look like this quarter was way worse, when in reality, a lot of the seeded commissions, they call it, was for the second quarter. And all of this has to do with the fact that the way they pay these commissions has changed this last quarter. And so moving forward from here on out, it should be smoother, but it looks especially nasty this quarter. But all that to say, along with a lower loss ratio, choosing more conservative people to insure and being really good at risk management, along with growing numbers of clients, growing premiums per client, we're seeing numbers moving in the right direction. We also saw that operating expenses were up 11% year over year to 41.6 million. This doesn't include those net losses and loss adjustment expenses, which are based on insurance claims, but it's more a factor of running the company like marketing, research, staffing, and stuff like that. Gross profits are up 83% year over year, which is what you really want to be seeing. Though that number is small at only $7.3 million right now, it looks like we're really moving in the right direction with Lemonade. This works out to a net loss of $30.9 million, which is a vast improvement year over year. Last year, they were at 31.1 million loss, or $2.78 per share. And this year, slightly down to $30.9 million net loss, but it's only a loss of 57 cents per share, which is like 1/5. They also mentioned that cash and cash equivalents are also up year over year. Last year, we were at 331 million, and this year, 597 million. That can be a little bit deceptive though, because they went public in July. And so when you go public, when you IPO, all of a sudden you get this huge influx of cash from people who want your stock. And so that made up a really big portion of that jump in cash and cash equivalents. These cash and cash equivalents also include a safety reserve for disasters, for insurance services. So what do you think about Lemonade? I think a lot of people have been a little bit harsh on Lemonade because a lot of the way these figures come out presented is just like, but like I mentioned a minute ago, we got to step back and take a look at what's going on behind the scenes, why these numbers look so grody this quarter, And so I mentioned in the past that I like Lemonade. I haven't been buying into it super duper heavy because I was like, there were still a few question marks that I wanted to see answered over these last quarters, but I feel even more confident than I was in the last video in August that I'm going to keep buying into it. And again, it's one of those stocks where, it could go $40 up to $60, $40, $60, kind of in that channel, And I think, again, as I mentioned in most of my videos, that a lot of stocks are really tricky to evaluate right now because there's just so much money flying into the stock market because it's hard to make money in other places. And so the stock market in general is quite expensive historically. And it's going to be really hard to see how things are impacted based on the pandemic, based on the vaccine, based on the president change and all this stuff. There could be a lot of drama, and there could be a downturn coming up as well, which nobody can really expect. But all that to say, if you're dollar cost averaging in, if you're buying a few stocks of Lemonade every month, when it's cheap, you're gonna be able to get more. And when it's expensive, you'll get less, but you're still getting it if you believe in it. And that's kind of my strategy with Lemonade. I really like it. I'm really encouraged to see that the in-force premium is going up, number of clients is going up, they're expanding to different services like life insurance, they're expanding into new countries like France and probably other states as well. And on top of that, it just looks kind of like people love it. People are gonna be staying with it. And with their strategy of targeting really young people and just making them into loyal fans who love the company that will just keep buying forever and ever and ever until they pass away is what you want to see, And so I'm interested in Lemonade. I have been buying little by little. I bought a bunch on a huge dip recently. So that's how I feel about it. What do you guys think about it? Let me know what you're thinking about doing with Lemonade down in the comments section or over on our Reddit. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. Have a great week and or weekend, depending on when you watch this video. Thank you guys very much. I love you. Talk to you soon.